The bridge of the Galactic Council monitoring station Harmonies. Watch fell silent as the distress beacon pierced through the cosmic background radiation. Senior Communications Officer Vexthara S4 eyes widened as she processed the incoming data stream, her delicate blue fingers trembling over the control interface. "Commander Zelenoth," she called, her voice barely above a whisper. "You need to see this immediately." Commander Zelenoth glided across the bridge on his serpentine lower body, his scaled form casting long shadows under the soft bioluminescent lighting. As a member of the peaceful Cytherian species, he had overseen this remote monitoring outpost for 12 cycles without incident. The sector was considered one of the safest in known space, far from any territorial disputes or pirate activity. "What is it, Vexthara?" he asked, settling beside her workstation. "It's a distress signal, sir. But not just any distress signal." Her voice carried an edge of fear that made Zelenoth's scales ripple with concern. "It's coming from the human fleet designated Terra 7. The name sent a chill through every being on the bridge. Humans were legendary among the galactic community, though most species preferred to forget why. They were the Deathworlders, the only sapient species to emerge from a planet so hostile that merely surviving childhood required capabilities that would make seasoned warriors of other races weep in terror. "Display the message," Zelenoth commanded, though part of him dreaded what they might hear. The main viewscreen flickered to life, revealing a human face streaked with blood and grime. The man's pale skin was marked by cuts that would have been fatal to most species, yet he seemed barely inconvenienced. Behind him, sparks flew from damaged systems while the sounds of battle echoed in the background. "This is Captain Marcus Chun of the Terran Defense Fleet, broadcasting on all emergency frequencies," the human said, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "Our formation has been broken." "Repeat, the Deathworlder fleet has lost formation." A collective gasp went up from the bridge crew. In all recorded galactic history, human formations had never been broken in battle. Their military doctrine was legendary for its precision and unbreaking discipline, forged in the crucible of a world where apex predators lurked behind every shadow. We were escorting the civilian convoy, Prosperity 9, through the neutral zone when we encountered an unknown hostile force, Captain Chun continued. "Initial contact suggested a standard pirate operation, but we were wrong. These ships, they're using technology we've never seen before. Energy weapons that punch through our shields like they're made of paper. Hull materials that seem to repair themselves faster than we can damage them." The transmission crackled with interference as another explosion rocked the human ship. Captain Chen was thrown sideways but quickly regained his footing, wiping blood from his forehead with the back of his hand. "Our battlecruiser Indomitable took a direct hit to the engine core and is currently dead in space. The destroyer Relentless has been boarded, and we've lost contact with her crew. 3 of our escort frigates are gone completely." His voice never wavered, maintaining the same professional tone as if he were delivering a routine status report rather than describing a massacre. Vexthara hands shook as she monitored the transmission. "Commander, the signal strength indicates they're at least 4 days' travel from here, even at maximum speed." "Continue monitoring," Zelenoth ordered. "Alert the Council immediately. If someone has managed to break a human fleet formation, they're dealing with a threat beyond anything we've encountered before." On the screen, Captain Chain turned to someone off camera before facing forward again. "The convoy is scattered across 3 star systems. We've managed to evacuate most civilian personnel to the inner worlds, but there are still thousands trapped on the outer settlements." The camera shook violently as the ship took another hit. Emergency lighting bathed the bridge in an ominous red glow, and alarms wailed in the background. Yet the human captain remained at his station, his crew working frantically around him without a trace of panic. "What strikes me most," observed Science Officer Cathara from her station, "is how they're responding to this crisis. Any other species would have surrendered or fled by now. The casualties they're reporting would have broken the morale of even our most elite units." Commander Zelenoth nodded grimly. He had studied human military history extensively, a requirement for any officer stationed near their territory. Their homeworld had bred them for conflict on a scale that most galactic species couldn't comprehend. Where other worlds had predators that hunted in packs, Earth had predators that hunted other predators. Where other worlds had natural disasters that occurred once in a generation, Earth had daily catastrophes that required split-second decision-making for survival. "We're implementing Protocol 7, Captain Chun announced, and several bridge crew members across the monitoring station drew sharp intakes of breath. Protocol 7 was the human designation for a fighting. Retreat against overwhelming odds, a tactical doctrine that had never been successfully implemented because no enemy had ever pushed them hard enough to require it. All remaining ships are to form defensive clusters around the civilian evacuation routes. We'll buy them whatever time we can." The captain paused, looking directly into the camera with eyes that held depths of determination forged in humanity's violent evolutionary crucible. "To any council vessels receiving this transmission, stay away. These hostiles are beyond current threat classifications. They've broken us, and we're the species that conquered our own death world." The transmission cut to static, leaving the Bridge of Harmony's watch in stunned silence. In the void of space, 4 days away, the unthinkable was happening. The humans, the Deathworlders who had never retreated, never surrendered, never shown fear in the face of any enemy, were falling back before an unknown force. "Commander." Zelenov's scales darkened to deep purple as he processed the implications. "Send an emergency burst transmission to High Command. Priority Alpha 1. Include the complete recording." As his crew rushed to comply, Zelenov stared at the static-filled viewscreen and wondered what manner of enemy could accomplish what the entire galactic community had thought impossible. The humans weren't just any military force. They were the species that had emerged victorious from a planet where death lurked in every ecosystem, where survival required instincts and capabilities that other species couldn't fathom. If something had broken the Deathworlder fleet, then the galaxy itself might be in danger. 3 days after the transmission from Captain Chun, the Galactic Council's emergency session chamber buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from dozens of species filled the tiered amphitheater, their various forms creating a kaleidoscope of colors, textures, and biological adaptations. At the center, High Admiral Texaron of the Valdorian Empire stood before the massive holographic display, her 6 arms gesturing at tactical projections while her crystalline voice carried across the chamber. "The situation has deteriorated beyond our initial projections," she announced. "Long-range sensors have detected massive energy signatures in the neutral zone. Whatever destroyed the human fleet appears to be moving toward the core systems." Counselor Brenthak, a massive arthropod whose species had evolved from hive-minded predators, clicked his mandibles in agitation. "Surely you exaggerate, Admiral. The humans may have tactical superiority, but they're not invincible. Perhaps they simply encountered a force better prepared than usual." A ripple of nervous chittering passed through the assembled delegates. Even suggesting that humans could be outmatched was controversial. For 3 centuries, since first contact, the Deathworlders had served as the galaxy's unofficial peacekeepers. Their mere presence was enough to deter aggression between species, and their military interventions had never resulted in defeat. "I understand the skepticism," Admiral Texaron replied, her tone patient but firm. "However, we've received additional communications from the human survivors. The enemy they encountered doesn't match any known technology or tactics in our databases." The holographic display shifted to show intercepted transmissions from the scattered human forces. Admiral Sarah Martinez of the heavy cruiser Vengeance appeared on screen, her uniform torn and bloodied, speaking rapidly into her communication device. "This is Admiral Martinez to any Council forces in range. We've been fighting a running battle for 72 hours. The enemy vessels appear to be partially organic, possibly biotechnology advanced beyond anything in our xenobiology databases. They adapt to our weapons after initial engagement, developing countermeasures faster than we can modify our attack patterns. The transmission showed glimpses of the human bridge crew working with mechanical precision despite obvious exhaustion. Men and women moved through their duties with the fluid efficiency, born from generations of surviving on humanity's merciless homeworld. Where hesitation meant death and weakness was eliminated by natural selection. Most concerning, Admiral Martinez continued, is their strategic behavior. They're not simply trying to destroy us, they're hurting us, forcing us away from specific star systems while allowing escape routes in predetermined directions. Whatever their ultimate goal, our destruction, isn't it? Counselor Sathara, representing the aquatic depth zones whose homeworld was a peaceful ocean paradise, rippled her translucent fins in confusion. I don't understand. If they can defeat human forces, why not simply eliminate them? What could they possibly want that requires such elaborate tactics? The question hung in the air until Communications Officer Kelmer announced an incoming priority transmission. Honored counselors, we're receiving a direct communication from the human homeworld. Admiral Chen Wei, Joint Chief of Staff for the Terran Defense Forces. The display shifted to show a stern-faced human woman standing in what appeared to be an advanced command center. Behind her, dozens of personnel worked at banks of control stations while massive screens displayed star charts and fleet dispositions. Unlike the battle-worn survivors from the neutral zone, Admiral Chen appeared calm and composed. Yet there was something unsettling in her dark eyes that made several council members shift uncomfortably. Honored members of the Galactic Council, she began, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. By now you've received reports from our forces in the neutral zone. What you may not realize is that this attack was merely a probing action designed to test our capabilities and responses. She paused, allowing the implications to sink in before continuing. Analysis of the enemy vessels suggests technology that incorporates both artificial intelligence and biological components in ways we've never encountered. More troubling, their tactical responses indicate they've been observing galactic military doctrine for an extended period, possibly years. Admiral Texeron leaned forward, her crystalline features reflecting concern. Admiral Chun, what do you estimate their true capabilities to be? The human's expression remained unchanged, but there was a flicker of something primal in her eyes, the same look that apex predators wore when calculating the threat level of potential rivals. Based on engagement data from our survivors, we estimate they deployed less than 15% of their total firepower during the initial encounter. If they had committed their full force, none of our ships would have escaped. The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations and nervous chittering. If the humans were correct, the enemy possessed overwhelming superiority not just over individual council species, but over the combined might of galactic civilization. There's more, Admiral Chun continued once the chamber had quieted. Our xenobiology specialists have analyzed debris from the enemy vessels. The biological components show signs of genetic material from multiple species across the galaxy. Someone has been collecting samples, possibly for decades, developing biotechnology that incorporates the advantages of various evolutionary paths. Counselor Brenthek's compound eyes focused intently on the transmission. Are you suggesting they've been infiltrating our worlds? Taking genetic samples without our knowledge? That's exactly what I'm suggesting, Admiral Chung replied. We've detected trace evidence of unauthorized bioscans on 17 different worlds over the past 50 years. At the time, they were dismissed as equipment malfunctions or cosmic radiation interference. Now we believe they were deliberate reconnaissance operations. The weight of this revelation settled over the council chamber like a suffocating blanket. An enemy had been studying them for half a century, learning their weaknesses, developing countermeasures for their defenses, and preparing for a conflict that none of them had seen coming. What do you recommend? Admiral Texeron asked. Though her tone suggested she dreaded the answer, Admiral Chun's expression hardened, and for a moment, the evolutionary heritage that had forged humanity on their death world was visible in her features. We recommend full military mobilization of all council species. Every ship, every weapon, every defensive installation should be brought to maximum readiness immediately. She leaned closer to the camera, and her voice carried the weight of a species that had clawed its way to the top of their world's food chain through sheer determination. Because based on our preliminary analysis, this enemy has the capability to sterilize every inhabited world in the galaxy. And if they've been preparing for 50 years while we've been complacent, they're not going to give us another chance to react. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Outside, the stars that had seemed so distant and peaceful suddenly felt hostile and threatening. Somewhere in that vast darkness, an enemy that could break the unbreakable. Humans was preparing for the next phase of their plan, and for the first time in centuries, the galaxy faced an existential threat that military might alone might not be able to overcome. 2 weeks after the Council's emergency session, the combined galactic fleet hung in space near the edge of the neutral zone like a glittering constellation of defiance. Over 3,000 vessels from 47 different species had answered the call, creating the largest military gathering in recorded history. Yet despite their overwhelming numbers, the mood among the fleet commanders was far from confident aboard the flagship Unity's strength. Admiral Chinwei stood before a holographic tactical display showing the deployment of forces. Around her, officers from dozens of species worked together in an unprecedented display of cooperation. The Valdorians provided advanced energy shields, the Cytherians contributed their superior sensor arrays, and the depth zones offered their mastery of gravity manipulation technology. "Contact bearing 37 Mark V," announced Lieutenant Commander Kekstar. His reptilian features focused intently on his sensor readings. Multiple signatures approaching at sublight speed. Configuration unknown. Admiral Chun moved to the main view screen as the enemy vessels emerged from the cosmic darkness. What they saw defied every assumption about spacecraft design. The ships were organic in appearance, their hulls flowing like living tissue while metallic components seemed to grow from their surfaces like technological parasites. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed along their lengths, creating an eerily beautiful display that somehow managed to be both magnificent and terrifying. 57 vessels confirmed, reported the Valdorian sensor specialist. But Admiral, the energy readings are ... impossible. Each ship is generating power equivalent to our entire battle group. Captain Rivera of the human destroyer. Retribution opened a channel from her position in the fleet's vanguard. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the enemy formation. It's coming through on frequencies we use for first contact protocols." "Put it through," Admiral Chun ordered. Though every instinct honed by humanity's violent evolution warned her that whatever they were about to hear would change everything, the view screen shimmered, and a figure appeared that caused several council officers to step backward in shock. It was humanoid in basic structure, but clearly not from any known species. Its skin had a translucent quality that revealed flowing patterns beneath, while its eyes held an intelligence that seemed both ancient and completely alien. When it spoke, its voice carried harmonics that suggested multiple vocal cords working in conjunction. "Greetings, children of the galaxy," it said, the words somehow translating perfectly into every language represented in the fleet. "I am Synthesis Prime, first among those you would call the evolved. We have observed your species for many cycles, studying your potential, evaluating your worthiness." Admiral Chun stepped forward, her military bearing evident despite the unprecedented nature of the situation. "I am Admiral Chen Wei of the Galactic Council Fleet. You have committed acts of aggression against peaceful civilizations. State your intentions." The being that called itself Synthesis Prime tilted its head in what might have been amusement. "Aggression? No, Admiral. What you witnessed was assessment. Your human forces proved most interesting, a species forged by conflict, shaped by adversity, possessing capabilities that most galactic civilizations have forgotten were necessary for survival." The tactical display showed the enemy fleet spreading into a formation that completely surrounded the Council forces. Yet their weapons remained powered down, their stance more curious than hostile. We are the culmination of evolution's promise, Synthesis Prime continued. 10 million years ago, our predecessors faced extinction on a world that made your Earth seem hospitable. They chose adaptation over destruction, synthesis over stagnation. We incorporated the strengths of our world's predators, the resilience of its survivors, the intelligence of its scholars. Captain Marcus Chun, recently rescued from the wreckage of his original command, spoke from his new position aboard a recovery vessel. You've been taking genetic samples from our species for decades. Why? Because, Synthesis Prime replied, we seek to understand what makes life persist against impossible odds. Your humans fascinate us most of all. A species that conquered a death world not through technology alone, but through sheer determination to survive and protect others. The revelation sent a chill through the assembled fleet. This wasn't a conventional invasion or resource grab. The evolved were collectors, seeking to understand the fundamental nature of survival itself. We have monitored your conflicts, your cooperation, your growth, the entity continued. Most species achieve spaceflight and become complacent, their survival instincts atrophied by comfort and safety. But humans, you retained the edge that allowed you to dominate your hostile homeworld. You fight not just for yourselves, but for others who cannot fight. Admiral Chun's jaw tightened as she processed the implications. What do you want from us? A choice, Synthesis Prime answered simply. Your species, all of your species, stand at an evolutionary crossroads. You can remain as you are, separate, limited by your biological origins, destined to eventually stagnate and fade. Or you can join us in the next phase of existence. The holographic display showed images of worlds beyond imagination, planets, where multiple species had been transformed into something greater than their origins. Their consciousness enhanced, their bodies adapted for environments no natural evolution could have prepared them for. Yet something in the perfection of these images was deeply unsettling. And if we refuse? Asked Commander Zelenoth from his monitoring station. Then you continue your separate paths until entropy claims you all, Synthesis Prime replied. We will not force evolution upon the unwilling. But neither will we allow stagnation to spread to worlds that might otherwise transcend their limitations. Captain Rivera's voice cut through the tense silence. Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the enemy fleet. Not weapons, something else. The space around the evolved vessels began to shimmer as reality itself seemed to bend. Massive structures materialized from what appeared to be folded space, vast constructs that dwarfed even the largest council vessels. They weren't weapons or ships, but something far more disturbing, laboratories. We offer you time to consider, Synthesis Prime announced. One rotation of your primary world to decide your collective future. But understand, the choice, once made, cannot be undone. The transmission ended, leaving the Council fleet alone with the most profound decision in galactic history. Around them, the evolved vessels waited with patient certainty, their mere presence a reminder that the universe contained forces beyond current understanding. Admiral Chun looked around the bridge at the representatives of 47 different species, each shaped by their own evolutionary path, each carrying the hopes and fears of billions of individuals. The humans had been broken in battle for the first time in their history. But perhaps that defeat had led them to something far more important, a choice that would determine whether the galaxy's children would remain children forever, or take their first steps toward something unimaginably greater. In the darkness of space, the clock began counting down toward a decision that would echo through the cosmos for eternity.